Welcome back, everyone. Well, you saw my quail in the intro clip. Today, let's learn all about them. I know several weeks ago I got you guys excited about the fact that I'm going to be raising quail this year. So I started this project. I picked them up last week. Now last week they were a week old. I think some were about, let's just say between 4 and 7 days old. Some were a little bit smaller than the others. So I picked them up from a local co-op where a farmer was selling them on consignment. And I bought them about $3 each, so they're pretty inexpensive. And I got 12. So we'll take a look at them throughout this video. I think what I'm going to do is actually intersperse me. As I'm talking, I'm going to kind of have you watching the birds. So I think they're really fascinating to watch. For me, they're even as interesting as watching an aquarium of tropical fish. So as you can see here, I have them set up in the brooder. Now they've been in the brooder for since I've got them. So basically for the last 7 days I've had them. So they're about 2 weeks old right now. And as you can see, they're in a Rubbermaid container, and I'll show you in a little bit their original setup. But there's 12 in there. I can't really tell yet if they're male or female. They're starting to feather out, so many of them I'll be able to sex based on just color alone. So these are called Coturnix Quail, and they are a Japanese quail. They've been domesticated for quite some time now. So they're actually used to being kept in captivity, unlike some other types of quail like bobwhite quail that are an indigenous species that are not as domesticated for use for meat or flight or egg production. So I decided on Coturnix Quail for egg and meat production, and I'm pretty excited about them. They are a lovely bird. They're pretty quiet, so you know, you can't really hear them at all, except for slight little peeping that they do in their brooder. As they get older, the males, they do make a little bit of a noise at dawn and dusk, but it's not a really irritating noise, not as loud, say, as chickens and roosters doing their crowing, you know, throughout the day or at dawn. So I'm really excited about the prospect of having my eggs produced by these quail. So with about 12 of them, I'm hoping at least 6 are going to be female. Like I said, I'll know in the next week or so which ones will be male and which ones will be female based on color. As you can see here in the brooder, there's some with marked color variations. So they're all genetically the same bird, but some of them express the genes a little bit differently. So you'll see I've got some wild type Coturnix Quail. I have some Italian Manchurians, which are the beige colored ones that you see running around the brooder. And I also have Tuxedo, and those are quail that have the color of brown and white. I think I may have a Tibetan color in there as well, but I'll have to see. So when I first got them, I had them in a small Rubbermaid tote with their water. You can see I've also put some pebbles in the water because the quail like to go for a swim when they're little, and sometimes they can get wet and cold or even drown in the water. So you want to put some pebbles in there so they don't do that, and that they can just drink their water without getting too cold or drowning. In terms of their food, they're put on a game bird starter ration, and that one's a higher protein, and I got that also at the co-op. When they're really little, they can't necessarily eat the larger crumbles that you'll get in the bags, and so what I did for the first week is I used a hammer in a sandwich bag and I smushed it all up. So it was almost just pulverized, kind of half of it was powder, half of it was the larger crumbles. They will kind of go through that and figure out what works best for them. Now at 2 weeks old, I don't worry about it at all. They just get the regular size crumble that comes out of the feed bag. So when you first start out, you want to put their food on a little blue paper towel, just so they kind of get used to eating it. When they're a few days old, when they're actually at the hatchery or the farm, you actually have to show them how to eat it. It's not intuitive for them to go there and eat it. You kind of have to put their face in it a little bit, and then they figure it out. But that's only for the first couple days, and then they're on top of it. So lots of fresh water, lots of fresh food, and I change them daily at this point. So I interact with them approximately once a day to clean them out, and I pop in for the first week, you know, throughout the day just to make sure the temperature is right. For the very first week of life and the first few days, you want to keep them at 35 degrees Celsius. Each week you kind of drop it down by about 5 degrees Celsius as they start to feather out. So right now, you know, I can keep it anywhere, you know, I think 30 right now is too hot for them because they've really feathered out in the last few days. So I keep it around 25, like really nice room temperature. Also, you can see now they're older, I've got them in a little bit different setup. I've got them in a larger tote with their water, minus the pebbles because they aren't going to go for a swim. And I also have their food in a more appropriate feeder. So you can see they can stick their head in there. When they're really little, sometimes they'll run around in the feed and they'll kind of go underneath those holes. It's hard to believe that they can actually sneak around underneath the feeder there. but they can. They don't get stuck, but what happens is they can poop in the food. So you want to make sure when they're really young that you change out the food frequently. You don't want it to get moldy, you don't want it to get full of poop, or if they flick water in it, again, that's a breeding ground for bacteria and mold. So in addition to changing them daily, I'd also change out that food dish. So in the bigger brooder there, you can see they've got the water, the food, and I also put in there a guinea pig house. They love that, actually. They love to run around inside of it. They feel safe in there, so they're less stressed if they have a place to go and hide versus just being alone in the big brooder with the top on there, you know, and things would come at them from the top, so they feel safe as ground birds to be able to duck under something. So important to have that as sort of enrichment and as for, you know, safety, so they can kind of go in there, they can hop up and down off of it. Other things for enrichment for ground birds in a brooder, you can put some sticks in there, you know, just things for them to scratch around. You can see it's lined right now with pine shavings. Earlier on, the first week or so, I actually didn't use the pine shavings because some of the shavings are so tiny. I was a bit worried some of the younger birds would pick at it and eat the little tiny pieces of shavings and thinking it was chicken scratch or their feed. So what I do now, So what I did back then was I actually had it lined with Carefresh bedding that you would use for, say, hamsters or guinea pigs. It's a bit more expensive, obviously, and you can use that ongoing, but it's pretty pricey, especially if you're changing them out once a week. So now that they're 2 weeks old, they're on pine shavings because I'm not too worried about them, you know, eating the wood shavings at all. So as you guys are watching the birds here, you'll notice that you can see chicken wire over top of the brooder, and that's necessary right now because at 2 weeks old they're feathering out, they're fledglings, they are excited to try out their new wings, and if they're startled, what they do as ground birds is either run for cover, so either run into the little guinea pig house, or they explosively shoot up into the air and bonk their heads, and they could fly out of the brooder. One, while I was cleaning it, I had the brooder on the floor. One decided it flew out of the brooder and went running around. So I was able to gently catch it and put it back, but really important, you know, especially to keep them covered. I did it from day one because I don't want anything kind of going in there, and also now really important because they are trying to test out their wings and fly out. As you know from like wild grouse and wild quail, they don't fly too far. What they do is they zip upwards really fast, and then they can fly. These guys can fly about 10 meters before they have to go and like touch down in the ground again. So very important with their housing, especially at this age, to make sure that they are protected and that the roofing system on top of your little Tupperware container, be it chicken wire, it has a bit of give to it, because a lot of these guys are prone to injuries to their neck from flying up so explosively. They can hurt their neck, or, you know, basically scalp their head, and their feathers come off, and they can die basically from a head injury. So important to keep them covered right now, but in something that has give. So some people will use you know, the mesh that you use over your screen doors. Others will use chicken wire. Either or is fine. I like the tubs for the brooders is that it also keeps them draft free, and you know, gives them a little bit of security. Sometimes they see things going on around them, like they have excellent vision. They could get startled. So at least, you know, with this, a little bit of a visual barrier on the sides. So if, you know, for coming and going out of the garage, they hear the noises, but don't necessarily see things kind of moving around. And yeah, I should mention, I do have them right now in a garage, like it can be heated over the winter, and it is an insulated area, so they don't get too hot and they don't get too cold, and it's draft free and predator free. So quails are very prone to predation in setups like this, in caging systems. So really important, you know, things that will eat them will be snakes, rats, cats, weasels, raccoons, coyotes, foxes, you name it. Anything can get in there and get them. So that's why I have these birds are right now, they're inside an insulated garage wood shop. So they're out of the draft, they are safe, the temperature is quite regulated, so they don't get too hot and they don't get too cold at night. Really important, because the first week I got them, it was extremely cold outside, so I was able to regulate the temperature really nicely with my 250-watt brooder lamp. So as you're looking at these little guys and gals right now, it's hard to believe that in a month they will be fully mature. So in a month they will start laying eggs. So at that point they'll be about 6 weeks old. So I'd say between 6 and 8 weeks we're going to start seeing some egg production, and the males can also be culled at that point in time for meat production. You know, some people that raise quail for flight purposes, then they can, you know, basically go on a finishing diet to be flight birds. Although Coturnix quail aren't great for flight birds. If you want flight birds for hunting or dog training, you know, for hunting, basically you want bobwhite quail. Coturnix quail are the best producers for eggs and meat. They have better conversion of the food into, you know, their end product, be it the meat or the eggs. So these guys will be on the game starter food for another month. And then the laying hens, they are going to go on to a layer diet, which is about 16 to 18% protein. And it's also going to be a diet that is increased in calcium, because you want to give them the extra calcium because they're going to be producing lots of eggs. One of these female quail can actually produce up to 200 eggs a year given the right conditions. So that's a lot of quail eggs. So quail eggs tend to be a bit more nutritious than chicken eggs, and they're cute. They're really small. They can be used for pickling or really interesting recipes. Put them on your salads, and lots of recipes out there, guys. You can check them out online. But it takes 5 quail eggs to 1 chicken egg, so keep that in mind. Even though I will be getting a lot of eggs, they are quite a bit smaller. They're a beautiful egg. They're a speckled egg versus, the chicken eggs, you can get multicolors, but they don't tend to be as speckled as the quail eggs. So far, everything has been going really, really well with the quail. They're super easy to keep. They don't require a lot of space per bird. And, they are a little bit, prone to injuries, like I mentioned earlier. So you want to be careful to protect them from head injuries and also leg injuries. So earlier this week I had 1 quail with a leg injury, and thankfully it's fine now. But as I was taking it out of the smaller brooder into its holding pen to clean it up, it banged its leg on the side, and that caused a bit of a sprain at the hip. Nothing was really wrong, it just needed some time to convalesce. So I had a smaller tub with water and food, and I put it in with its brood mate. They cannot be kept alone. They are social birds. If you put them alone, they get extremely stressed. So I had to put in a couple of smaller birds with it, just for part of the day, just so it could kind of, relax and not get trampled on or pecked on by other birds. And it made a full recovery. It was just a bit startled and had a bit of a sprain at the hip, but now I can't even tell which one it is. They're all doing well. So you just have to be very careful. They are prone to injury. They're delicate. I'd say more delicate than a chicken. And you'll have to just be careful and keep that in mind with your brooder design. What's coming up next for the quail? So I spent this video talking about the first 14 days of life, which has been a lot to cram into a video. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments, because I'm sure I haven't covered all of your questions, and I might make a video on all your questions. So if you want to put them down below, I can also make a special Q&A video at the end of my series. But next week I hope to get them into their grow out pens, their cages, so I will show you all about that. I'm feverishly getting that ready for them to get transferred over, because you can see they're getting a bit too big for the larger brooder, and they're feathering out, and they need a bit more space. So we'll talk about that in the coming videos, and I've got lots more to come, guys. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, watching the birds, learning a bit about Coturnix quail, and we're going to get into more depth about them, about why you would keep them, and anything you guys want to know about them, let me know. I think they're a great bird for a homesteader. I hope you guys have a wonderful week and that you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye for now.